Trying to figure out what a middle schooler wants as a class reward is like the hardest thing any professional has to do.
Yeah. I think you're going the other way. I'm going the other way?
All right, like top 5 for sure. But in this video, I'm going to give you effective ways to recognize student success and talk about how to reward students in a way that actually works. What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Pursuit of Excellence family. I'm Daryl Williams, and I'm here to help you maximize student growth by developing their life skills, mindset, and character. And today we're talking about recognizing students for their accomplishments and recognizing student success. So we've been talking about setting goals and mindset, and soon they're going to start achieving these goals. And the way that we get them continuously invested in setting goals and to build up their mindset and that intrinsic motivation is to reward them. And of course, that's also the second R in the Smarter Goals framework. So if you don't know much about that, I'll link that video. But Smarter Goals is awesome. Just gotta say that. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube and blogs talking about some specific things that you can do, but today I really want to share a framework of how to recognize students. So the first thing I want you to do is to decide on what the reward is going to be and set a deadline. Deciding on the reward is actually one of the toughest parts, especially in middle school. But if you're in elementary school or high school, it doesn't matter what school it is, this framework is going to work. Decide on what that reward is going to be and set a deadline for when the students will get that reward. Now, I don't have a lot of ideas with me right now on how to reward students, but I will link in the description below an awesome article that I found that gives a great way to reward students class-wide through it, whether it be virtual or it be in person. So check that out in the description below. But one suggestion that I do have is that you can ask your students what they'd be willing to work for. And you'd be surprised with how realistic their responses could actually be. And one pro tip that I want to add on this section is that we don't always have to do things for free. I'm learning more as I head into leadership that there's actually money that is allotted for certain things like this. So before you put yourself in a box and say we can't afford to do anything, maybe you wanted to have game trucks come out or something like that and say, we can't afford to do that. Just check. I mean, the worst they can say is no, right? That's what people always tell me. So check with the decision makers and ask that question. Ask them, do we have money that I can use to reward my students in my class for doing XYZ? Now, there are definitely a lot of free options, but don't shy away from the paid options. Matter of fact, I want you to comment down below. I want you to do this. I want you to ask the decision makers if there's money available for you to use to reward your students. And I want you to comment what they say below. I don't know what they're gonna say, whether it's a yes, whether it's a no. I want you to let me know what they say so that as a community, we can see what we can expect to receive. But there's money out there in some schools that people don't ask about, and they actually do have it available for you to use. Number 2, I want you to make sure that you get students excited about their reward. I mean, like, get them excited about it. Whatever it is, whatever you decide, not everybody's going to agree with it anyway. It's not going to be everybody's favorite. But the fact of the matter is, you just got to assign a deadline and get students excited about it. Get them pumped. It's kind of like I think about New Year's. The last couple of years, we spent New Year's with my family, and my mom has fallen asleep before the ball drops at midnight. But we always wake her up right before the midnight, and everybody gets all excited. It's 10, 9, 8, right? And they count it down. That's the kind of anticipation that you want to build. You want to build that sort of anticipation for the rewards. Students should be really excited about achieving this reward. So think about that. The next thing that you want to do is constantly mention the reward. Regularly, all the time. When I was in the classroom, I would have a slide right after my do now, right before we got into the lesson, that would just kind of have a few housekeeping items, and there would always be our goal and our reward right before we started the lesson, because I wanted students to recognize or remember, this is what you said you're working towards, and this is what will happen if you actually do it. And I used to be dramatic with it, so when there was a pizza party, I would have a GIF of pizza on the screen, and students would be like, oh, really getting excited about it. But I wanted to ingrain in them, listen, if you work hard enough, this is what you said you will achieve. And before you guys get on me about that's not intrinsic motivation because it's an external resource, I know, I get it, all right, I got you. But sometimes you have to have an external reward to build up that intrinsic motivation. And we can talk about that in another video. But students were really excited about that pizza party, and students are really working really hard to go ahead and try to achieve it. The next thing that you want to do is make sure that you follow through. And this is probably the biggest thing. You have to follow through. Whatever the reward is that you said it was going to be, let that be the reward. Whatever the deadline is that you said it was gonna be, let that be the deadline. And if you fall short, you got one time. You have one time to make this mistake and you lose students' trust, and it's so hard to regain it. So going back to the first step, it's really important that whatever award you decide, make sure that it's actually practical and doable, and make sure that it's been authorized before you announce it to your students that this is what we're working towards. Because if you go back and say we're no longer working towards this, or they just don't get it, then you're going to break that trust. And that's not something that we can have. So make sure that you stick to the reward, that you keep that promise, and that whatever you say that they'll get, that they will actually get. All right, I think about it like one time my wife and I were babysitting my niece, and she was like 3 years old, and my wife was like, all right, come here, and the child would not come. And she was like, come here, come here. She's like, I have candy, but she didn't actually have candy. A couple minutes later, she's like, come here, come here. And the girl's running in the gym, and she was like, I have candy. And then my niece comes over, and she came over, and I was like, okay. And then a couple minutes later, it's time to go, and she's like, come here. And she said, I have candy, and she just kept on running. I just looked at my wife and said, how long do you think that was gonna work? You don't have candy. Eventually, she's 3, but eventually she's gonna realize you don't have candy. I'm not coming, you're lying, right? So it's the same thing. If we tell students, hey, if you do this, we'll have a pizza party, but that pizza party never comes. We'll have an ice cream social, we'll have a pep rally, whatever it is, but those things don't actually take place, you're gonna lose student trust, and it's actually gonna do more harm than good, because students are going to retaliate, and they're not gonna work towards your goal because they don't believe anything that you say anymore. And the last part, the last portion is honestly huge. So many people forget this or don't do it, and I don't want you to be that person. So make sure you do this. Reflect. Whether they get the reward or they don't, you've got to reflect. You got to reflect right before they get it. So let's say we're having a pep rally. Before you line up to go to the pep rally, you say, the reason why we're going to this pep rally today is because we achieved 75% content mastery on our earth science standards. You know, you guys did an awesome job. We're so proud of you. This is what happens with hard work, and we know that you're gonna continue to grow and set the bar higher, and we're gonna, move forward from here. You guys are doing an amazing job. You deserve it. Go enjoy yourselves at the pep rally. Let's line up. Reflect on what got them to that point. But if you don't get the reward, you still have to reflect. You still say, listen, all right, today we were supposed to have our pep rally, but we're not gonna get it because we wanted to have 70% mastery. Unfortunately, we were only at 62%, but listen, that's just where we are right now. All right, our current condition is not our conclusion. Where we are right now is not at 70%, but we can get there. So we won't have the pep rally today, but we're gonna stay in class and we're gonna keep grinding. We're gonna keep working. We're gonna keep trying. And I know that if we continue to put our minds to it and refuse to give up, we're eventually gonna get to that 70% that we seek. You have to reflect either way, whether you get it or whether you don't, and then set a new goal and start the process all over again. All right, so that's how I approach rewarding students, and that'll work whether it's an entire school, whether it's a grade level, whether it's a classroom, or even if it's an individual student. But use those 5 strategies and use that framework to really develop student rewards. Now, I don't have a resource for you today, but I can create one. So if you want one, how about you go ahead and drop a like in the video, and if we get 25 likes before the next time I record a video, I'll create a reward system freebie and share it with you, putting this framework all together so that we can effectively reward students. In the next video, I'm gonna be a little vulnerable, a little bit open, but I'm gonna share with you the reason why I'm so passionate about this work. And it's not something I talk about a lot, not something I talk about often, if ever at all, definitely not on camera. But I'm gonna share with you the reason that drives me. It's gonna be personal, I'm gonna be transparent, but share with you the reason that I'm driven to do this work. So subscribe so you make sure that you are notified when that video comes out. But in the meantime, I want you to check out this video right here, which is going to go through the 5 mistakes that I made as a first-year teacher that I really hope that you don't make, whether it's your first year or beyond. I don't want you to make those mistakes. Also, you can check out that video down there that I think that you'll enjoy, and I will see you in the next one.